Last time on Lightlark, we found out that along with like 20 other creepy powers, Grimm can teleport. Isla ran away to her castle and proceeded to hide there like the brave warrior that she is. She got bored of hiding after a while and went to see her favorite NPC, only to find out that he was super dead. Isla followed Cleo for a while and learned why that's a bad idea when Cleo kicked her ass and left her to die like a Bond villain. Then Isla was almost eaten by cannibals or something, but Oro saved her. Oro apologized for blabbing Isla's secret, and she forgave him immediately. They're buddies again. For some reason, there was a giant party/carnival, but don't worry, Isla barely went to it. Isla got super drunk on one drink and stumbled into Oro for some bonding time. And finally, someone was attacked in this that was supposed to be a death game. It was Celeste. Hello, we are back for more of this book. Guess what? I went and figured out my cosplay for when we were to the final chapters of this book, and we're getting close, so I hope you're hyped. If I'm not being extra, what even is the point? I wonder how many chapters we have left. On chapter 45. Holy shit, there's a lot of acknowledgements. There are 56 chapters, although chapter 56 is literally a page long. Is there a sample of the next book? Oh no, there's an exclusive bonus chapter. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that one on my Patreon, so patrons, look forward to that. The exclusive bonus chapter is gonna be for you. Her acknowledgements are as long as her last chapter. Like, my god, I'd like to acknowledge the money, the contacts that I had. Oh, she thanks Book Talk. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Chapter 45, Vanished. Now tell me, I'm gonna read this for you. Tell me this doesn't sound like these two are romantically involved. Isla moved through the castle like a storm. If she'd had power, it would be everywhere. She ran like she was running from something, wielded her dagger like she might throw it. Her teeth chattered like the marble beneath her feet was ice. Ella, a starling, was alive, which meant the ruler had to be too. Had to be. She wasn't supposed to know Celeste. Beyond the last few months, she wasn't supposed to care so much. Isla pinched her palm to keep from crying, smoothing the worried lines across her face, like trying to move metal, but she did. Still, when she entered the gardens, she was running.
You are gay.
So she heard that her totally not girlfriend was injured, and she is careening through the castle to reach her side. This is more emotion than we have ever gotten from her about any of her boys. Listen, Alex, make Isla buy, you coward.
You might just catch my eye because I'm definitely bi.
I am a little bit confused by what is described, though, when she gets to the scene of the crime. Celeste floated in the middle of a miniature maze, looking a lot like she was sleeping. What am I picturing exactly? Is it like it's a maze made of ice? I'm assuming so, because I'm pretty sure we're at least meant to believe that this was an attack by Cleo. So let's assume Cleo. Are we talking like kiddie pool size? Like Celeste is just floating on top of? Like what? It's very confusing. Oro is the only other ruler there, and he says, "This is old enchantment. I haven't seen it in a while. It's a poison." She's floating in a miniature maze, and that's a poison? And of course, because this author, once again, does not trust her readers to understand anything, has Isla think Cleo, she had gone after Celeste, just as Oro had suspected. Again, Isla is so overwrought over Celeste here. I'm just waiting for her. Like, it feels so much like this is her crush or her love. Like, any second she's gonna throw herself over Celeste or grasp her hand. This is just simply not true. This is Isla thinking about herself. During the last 75 days, she had begun to feel strong, so unlike the unsure, inexperienced wildling girl that had stepped foot on the island. Were you feeling strong, Isla, when you were cowering in your castle, afraid that people were going to attack you? Were you feeling strong when you needed a big, tough man to come defend you? Is that when you were feeling strong? Oh, apparently this is supposed to be a moment that makes our character feel guilty, because she had one drink that made her excessively drunk, and then she wandered back to her room with the help of Oro. And that means that she was a bad friend and didn't stay around to protect Celeste, even though she had no idea when she took that drink that it was going to make her stupidly drunk immediately. She had no idea. She didn't do anything risky on purpose. It was an accident. Because she's making it sound like she was just irresponsible. And I get it, with a more complex character or a more experienced author, I would be like, the character is incorrectly thinking that they have done something wrong. But I know this author, and I know this character, and she's trying to make us believe that Isla has made a mistake of some kind, when in reality, it was through absolutely no fault of her own. She's trying to have her cake and eat it too. She wants the emotional gut punch of the main character feeling like she let her best friend down, while also keeping the main character completely virtuous and blameless. She would never intentionally get drunk. She would never have more than one drink. She's too pure, too innocent. But she still wants that, oh no, she made a horrible mistake feeling. And unfortunately, it doesn't work. Oro leaves after explaining that he has no idea when this spell will be broken, if ever, and then Grimm shows up. Oh boy, just what this situation needed. So she just tells Grimm, hey, make her body invisible so that whoever attacked her doesn't come back to try to finish the job, and then the chapter ends. It was another stupidly short chapter. So, you know, if Grimm can just make people invisible so quickly and easily, I don't know why Isla doesn't just have him make her invisible all the time. Using our cool powers, who does that? This is a problem when you make a story where your characters are so powerful. Your readers are often left wondering why they don't use their powers more, and for obvious things. I think that's why I lean towards less powerful characters in my own writing. Anyway, I'm gonna go check on my pizza, and then we'll probably return for the next chapter. We're back. I had a break to eat my lunch, and now we will continue with Isla, who is totally not in love with Celeste. I don't know what you're talking about. This next chapter, chapter 46, is called Poison. I don't know why that wasn't just included. Include the chapter called Vanished in the chapter called Poison, because apparently it's a poison that has her trapped in a sleep-like death. It's very confusing. The only reason the other chapter is called Vanished is because at the very end, the last sentence, she asks Grimm to make Celeste invisible. Should we do a video where we talk about good chapter titles? I'm not gonna pretend that I'm necessarily good at it, but we could do a video where we share all of our favorite chapter titles. That sounds interesting, let me know. Oh my gosh, yeah. Tell me she's not in love with Celeste. Everything changed in an instant. Now Isla wasn't just fighting for herself, or Tara, or her people. She was fighting for Celeste. They are in love. They have so much more chemistry than any of the boys have with Isla in a million years. Oro just seems like a buddy. They have friend chemistry. And Grimm, yeah, she is hot for him sometimes for no reason, but there's no actual chemistry. She is in love with Celeste, and you cannot tell me otherwise.
Now you could have your choice of man, but I could never love again, 'cause you're the only one for me, Jolene.
This sentence seems like it's incomplete. She's decided that she has to try a wildling remedy to save Celeste, and so she's hacking through the underbrush. Soon she was cutting through a path covered in wild grass, through a forest that seemed determined to mark her skin 1,000 times, period. Crossing a perilous bridge, period. I get that you're trying to include that in the soon she was up there, but that was 2 sentences ago, so maybe say, crossing a perilous bridge, she did blank, or she nearly slipped crossing a perilous bridge. It seems like such a stump, it's just out there. And that's, again, a downfall of this author's style, where she likes a lot of short, choppy sentences. Okay, she's still trying to open the vault in her castle. I forgot that was a thing, honestly. Completely forgot. I thought that she had opened it and there was nothing in it. That's how little it meant to me. She, for some reason, thinks that inside that vault she will find the cure for Celeste's problem, and I have no idea why she thinks that, because every time, everything else she has ever sought in the course of this book has not been where she looked for it. So why on earth would she think in an abandoned castle her people would have left a well-stocked larder full of remedies?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
I thought she was gonna cut into the wild and use her knowledge to find and make this herself, but she's not. She's just I know that there must be what I need behind that door. So it's ready-made for me and handed to me on a silver platter. Our heroine is dumb as a post. So she's trying to figure out the lock, and she decides the thing to do is like stick her hand in it, and then she gets her hand caught for an hour. Good job. Then she finds a box, a little box with holes in it. I have no idea what I'm picturing. Exactly, like, is it like, how big is it, and what kind of holes? Like, is it all holes, like a Swiss cheese, or are there holes on the top? Unclear. But she found a box with holes, and she shoved it into the lock, and it broke, and then there were pieces of the box stuck in the lock that she had to get out, and it's just like, what are we doing? Someone come get this girl. She's not okay.
It's the final brain cell.
And she gives up, so this whole sequence was pointless, and she storms out, mad that the two things that she tried, which are the dumbest things in the whole world, did not work. And now she's just seething about how she wants to just go kill Cleo. Wow, okay, this author is so abrupt in her scene changes sometimes, I have no idea what's happening. It took me to the bottom of the page to realize that Oro was actually with her, because he wasn't mentioned until they are actively doing something. So she's walking along somewhere, we're not told where, and she's seething about how much she wants to kill Cleo. And then all of a sudden, she and Oro are doing something, and I realized belatedly that she and Oro were both walking somewhere, but he wasn't mentioned until right now. But they have somewhere, again, I don't know where they are, they have found a tower sticking out of a mountain of snow. Because this fantasy world and these islands can contain anything that the author can think of that might be cool. And it turns out to be an abandoned palace. Why? When was it abandoned? By whomst? I don't understand. They find a sunken room where everything, all the furniture and everything is still exactly in place. It's just underwater. And again, I think this author is going off purely cool visuals. I heard someone call this book the book equivalent of one of those mood board reels or TikToks where it's just like a bunch of cool images set to music. And yes, that is 1000% what this is. The author just looked at a bunch of cool aesthetic board, that's what they're called, and then was like, yep, that's enough for a book. My work here is done. Turns out, actually, no. An aesthetic board is not the same as a book. Alex, do you hear me? Are you internalizing this? Just having things that might look cool, poorly described things that might look cool, I'm left to do most of the work with my own imagination, but just putting in things that look cool is not actually how books work. Oro's gonna go for a little swimmy swim, and as he's taking off his clothes, he warns her that there are creatures in the water. She's so unattracted to Oro, the author is really struggling to make us believe that they could ever be like a couple, because they do have just a really platonic energy to their relationship. So she looks at him, and it's described really unsexily, like, yeah, he's got some muscles and whatnot, and then it says, she studied him, wondering if it hurt to lose one's power, to die slowly, inch by inch. I mean, probably. She looked for other reasons, too. The author does not elaborate. So we're left to believe that that's because she finds him hot, but it's so random, and we don't believe that she does, because their energy has never been one of attraction. If you wanted to have Isla be the sort of person who mostly likes people for their physique, you could still do that. You could have this be the first time she really notices his physique. But in that case, you have to have things like she looked at his arm, to see the curse spreading, and then, her eyes traced up his arm and out onto his chest, and all of a sudden she was looking at his abs, and oh my goodness, and now she's all warm. And, the author didn't do that. It was just, she looked for other reasons too. There's another meanly, take a drink. Somehow, Oro picks up on the non-existent sexual tension, and he asks her how many people she has been with. She doesn't admit that she's a virgin. She's like, I'm not answering that question. We've given up ever describing clothing as anything that sounds like fantasy clothing. Earlier, she was just wearing a sweater and pants, and now she's wearing a tank top that reached just above her navel and a pair of high-waisted tight shorts. I don't think Alex put any thought whatsoever into what her characters would be wearing except for occasionally sexy dresses. Of course, Oro looks at her and is just absolutely stunned. He probably popped a boner because Isla, lest we forget, is incredibly hot. Oh, he's wearing socks. Oh, and shoes, not even boots. He's wearing socks and shoes. Oh, so fantasy, such fantasy world. How did he ever figure this out? So the thing that they're looking for is water lilies that apparently grow in a frozen ruin in an abandoned castle. How did he find them? And also, why not just bring Cleo? You know, the one with control over water and cold water at that? Like, why is he with Isla right now? He has already walked her into danger twice, once where she had a ghost take over her body, and the other time where she was almost, I don't know, something terrible almost happened to her with insect people. So, like, he could be about to feed her to a giant fish for all she knows, and she's just like, well, he's kind of hot, I guess, so I'll trust him again. He was like, forgive me, and she was like, okay, and that was it. So we have both of our characters underwater, and this is another one of those times where you need to remember how many words you put on the page because they take up time in the reader's mind. And if we are reading this and we're going, how long is this character holding her breath? If you go on and on and on, we're gonna feel like they have now held their breath for an impossible amount of time. But Isla has met a creature. I'm very kind of confused at what I'm trying to picture here. Half the girl's face was scaled, so are we talking vertical or are we talking horizontal half here? And half of her hair was the transparent silkiness of a koi fish's tail. Like, is she split down the middle, so half of her body is a fish and half of her body is a human? I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at. But the weird, confusing fish girl reaches out her hand, and Isla takes it because, once again, she is very easily bespelled, this girl. But the fish girl leads her apparently right where she was going, takes her to the water lilies, through several rooms, so I don't know how long Isla's been holding her breath. But I thought Isla wasn't very good at water. Like, she struggled in the other water events, so I had the feeling that she wasn't, like, the strongest swimmer. She yanked her arm, yanking Isla along. Yanked and yanking in the same sentence, 2 words apart. So Isla is like, hey, thanks, fish girl. I can take it from here, but the fish girl is displeased by this. I don't know why she brought Isla into this room, but maybe this is just where they kill people. Maybe this is the killing room. But when she tries to get away, the fish girl slashes her with her razor-sharp nails. Isla began swimming out of the room again, not knowing anything, but knowing she needed to get away. If she's not knowing anything, that means that she's also not knowing she needed to get away. Probably could have skipped the not knowing anything and said something like only knowing she needed to get away. She gets away from the fish girl for quite a while. She swims back through however many rooms they swam through in the first place, unclear. And she's almost to freedom when the fish grabs her again. I don't know where Oro is this entire time. Watching? I don't know. She has wiring in her bra? Wow, Alex, you did not even fucking try. Isla has a dagger hidden in the wiring of her bra. Excuse me? Alex, were you like, you could not be arsed, could you? You could not be arsed to even do the barest minimum. Like, we already know she couldn't name the armor before, probably because researching it would be against her personal religion or something. But she didn't even research enough to know what kind of fantasy garments this girl might be wearing. She's just wearing a bra with an underwire. But she uses the dagger and stabs the fish girl in the eye. Rude. We're reminded, not as often as we're reminded about Grimm, but Oro is also much bigger than her, and we have to be reminded of that too. His hands are so big, he's healing her, of course. His hands are so big, or maybe she's so tiny and delicate, that they like basically cover her, that one hand basically covers her entire stomach.
Big, McLarge, huge.
It's a good thing that his powers waning has no effect on whether he can just heal her, so she never has to be in any, like, danger from her injuries. What? She asks, did you find it? And he says, no, it wasn't there. But she went to the place where the lilies were, and she even thought that she felt a heartbeat sensation down there. So why doesn't she go, hey, Oro, the fish girl took me right to the spot, and now we should search it? Did he, like, just follow her? I have no idea where he was this entire time, but I guess we just believe him that he checked everywhere? Ah, okay, we are at least getting back to the cannibals, because he's like, there's one more place to check, because apparently no questions asked, he just definitely checked everywhere in this sunken castle. But he says they have to go to the Vinderland territory, which is the cannibal people who attacked her before. Oh no! Plot twist! The Vinderland people used to be wildlings. So they're gonna go there. That's pretty much the end of the chapter. Gonna go see the old wildlings, which I haven't really talked about it too much, but the author of this book is Latina, or half anyway, and so her main character resembles her, and Isla's people resemble her in that they have brown skin and dark hair. You already have that very iffy theming with them being savage, with them being very sexualized. We talked about that in A Night in Its Moon as well, with the sexualization of black and brown women. Also, their society is almost entirely women. So now we get an even more savage version of these people who are cannibals. And I'm just like, none of the white people in this story are cannibals. It's just not great, Alex. I'm wondering where your thought process was at with all of this. Other people whose skin is not as pearly white as my own address it more readily, and I'll link, if I remember in the doobly-doo, a review by a reader who is far more qualified to talk about this than I am. Anyway, I have other things to do today, so I will see you all again for the next chapter. Hi, hello, we are back. What am I wearing, you ask? Why, this is the cool new heated vest that my husband got me for Christmas, and I was wearing it to do horse chores, and I just kept wearing it around the house. One thing no one mentions about being a teeny tiny person is that you are always cold. All the time. So heated vest for me. You might hear the dryer in the background, but you're used to the house noises by now. Also, there are ferrets loose in this house. Don't know where they are. Chapter 47 is called Bloom, and it's 2 pages long, so I'll probably read the next chapter as well. Oh, this bird is back. I guess the bird has decided to be a plot point. Sort of over halfway through this book, this bird was introduced.
One of us is here to say hello.
And I think I'm sort of recalling vaguely some spoilers that the bird is important. This author understands that you have to have foreshadowing and you should set things up beforehand, but again, she has no idea how to do that. For that, I would ask her to read other books, study what other authors are doing. How are they pacing? How are they foreshadowing? This ain't it, fam. This ain't it. Everything about this book reads of clumsy novice attempts at writing. I don't think she's going to get better between books 1 and book 2. It's not quite that easy. It usually takes several books to get noticeably better, and she is at such a novice state right now that I am not imagining that book 2 is going to be much better than this. But sorry for that tangent, the bird's back. She thinks that it's Cleo's spy. I don't think so. I think it's something else. MacGuffin bird is here. Also, putting the bird on the inside cover does not count as foreshadowing, sorry. That is the work of the cover creators being we gotta help this girl out. Give them the bird clue on the cover. For some reason, even though she and Oro have ostensibly bonded, she still thinks of Oro as having a cold heart. How big is Cleo's island? Because they're walking further and further and they're getting into even more icy, snowy, jaggedy lands. I don't know what to picture. How big are all of these islands? I thought they were fairly small because they broke off of a larger island. But apparently they're just, you can walk forever. But the cannibals attack, and of course Isla is ready, and she shoots 3 arrows at once and kills 3 people immediately. So lest we forget that Isla is the most badass who was ever a badass. She stabs another guy and then a woman and has throwing stars. She is just a one-woman murder machine. Oro is also killing them using his magic. I guess, was the plan to come in here and murder a bunch of them? I thought they wanted to talk to these people, but maybe they're just too savage to even talk. I don't know.
Also, just more world building. These are people who used to be wildlings, right? They have abandoned the island that the wildlings used to live on. Okay, well that makes sense because all the wildlife and plant life died, so there's nothing for them to eat. But they went to Cleo's island, which is a snowy tundra. Why would they go there? That's even worse than where they were previously. Nothing makes sense.
Oh, somebody pointed out in my comments, it's been ages since you guys have seen this comment, I'm sure, but somebody pointed out, the hearts thing. With Isla being given hearts, every day, every week, I can't remember, and doing whatever she does with them, throws them into the water, puts them in a closet, whatever she does with the hearts. That means that somebody has to die. The palace is just casually murdering people to feed
one of the people in the game. And there's like, I have no idea what the judicial system is like. Are they death row prisoners? Are they just people who drew in a lottery? Like, I would be super mad. Once again, the residents of all these islands have every right to be infuriated that their rulers are like this, because the rulers, aside from Cleo and maybe a little bit Azul, do not care about their people. And Cleo mostly cares about them in like that she can form them into an army and protect them using them. Azul just seems like he's mostly the fun party king, and then everybody else, their people might as well not be there for how much attention they pay to them, for how much they seem to care about them. And that is deeply distressing, and I really have to put horrifying implications on the next bingo card. Do not let me forget. Somehow, because the author realizes that in fight scenes, sometimes the character needs to lose for a second before they win, so she goes from hyper-competent murdering handfuls of people at a time to just falling over because the ground is slippery. Her metal clanked against other metal before she hit the weapon away and cut down the one who wielded it. She did the same to another and another. Literally, that goes directly to, with a grunt she was knocked onto her back, the ground was coated in ice. She gasped but felt no relief. So like, she went from hyper-competent murdering multiple people to fell on her ass. And then immediately somebody starts strangling her. Wow. Again, it's just so evident that Alex understands the bare minimum of writing, that she understands things that should happen in a book, but has no idea how to make them flow and how to implement them well. This is stupid. So Oro didn't seem to have a weapon before, but now he has a sword to stab the guy that's strangling her, because of course, we all saw that coming a mile away. And she's like, where did he get the sword? And I'm like, he has starling powers, and they demonstrated that they can create weapons out of nothing. So where do you think he got the sword? And then she remembers that he has starling power, but she says she hadn't known a thing like that could be done. You watched the Starlings do exactly this thing. They created weapons out of nothing in their demonstration. Did Alex forget? But they have murdered all of the people, and so they keep going. Once again, Oro continues to be fine. Like, he had a moment of weakness one time, but otherwise he continues to be fine. He can use all of his powers without any issue, even though he's supposed to be dying. Also, I mentioned how I liked that the castle and the island breaking apart was a good physical representation of like what was going on in the urgency, but then, as expected from this author, nothing was done with it. Nobody was inconvenienced by it. Nobody had any issues because of it. It was just a cool set piece that happened, and then we moved on and continued with whatever story she's trying to tell without much care for it. Set pieces is a good way to describe everything that's going on in this book. It's just a series of things. They find a tree of white feathers blooming from the ice. No further description is given, but Isla thinks, of course, for some reason she thinks, of course, that this tree with feathers, this frozen feather tree, is 100% where the heart would be. She is completely convinced upon seeing this weird tree that this is correct, and she's running towards it. She's talking about the feathers of this tree as though it's perfectly normal for a tree to have feathers, and I just don't understand. But of course, they don't find the heart in the tree, and Isla is just devastated because 10 seconds ago she was certain that that's where it was going to be, certain with every fiber of her being. And again, this comes out of nowhere. She just sees a tree, goes, yes, that is 100% where it has to be, didn't find the heart, and now she is crushed and devastated. And as we near the climax of this book, it is more and more painfully evident how little Alex understands about how to pace a scene, how to construct a story. Storytelling is such a hugely important element of writing that so many people just tend to think comes naturally, is a thing that everybody is just good at, and it is not. And it's a skill that many people need to practice. Storytelling is actually what I'm good at, and it's the other more nitty-gritty elements that I sometimes struggle with and have had to learn over many, many years. And I think Alex is actually possibly finding herself in a slightly more difficult position, because I think it might be harder to learn to become a storyteller than it is to learn the mechanics of writing a book. I'm not saying that she cannot do it. I'm just saying it might be rougher for her, and especially it's going to be way rougher if she's living in a hug box with an industry that is telling her this book is good enough, this book is worthy of being published and being a movie. Why would you ever improve then? Put in the extensive effort that it's going to take to become a good storyteller, to grasp the layers that are involved in storytelling. And that just makes me really sad. Like this now I was angry, but now I'm sad. I'm so sad because the world deserves good books, and there are so many beautiful storytellers that are trying to get published right now and are failing. But anyway, yes, there was no heart. Isla is devastated, and that's the end of the chapter. And now I need to go find some ferrets because I haven't heard them in a little while, and that makes me suspicious. All right, we're back. Let's see if we can get through this next chapter. Maybe I'll be less wordy. Let's get through this next chapter before I run out of memory card. Let's go. Chapter 48, Hidden. I feel like I'm saying buzzwords. Hidden. Today's word of the day is hidden. So the first two paragraphs are reminding us how much Isla has failed and all of the things that have gone wrong, but she's determined to succeed. She's going to keep fighting no matter what for the people that she loves, like her totally not girlfriend. And also the two women who abused her. Next, it says 3 days after their journey. She waited 3 days? So this whole urgency that she's feeling of, I will survive, we have 20 days left, I must succeed. What was she doing in those 3 days? Brushing her hair? This is too many days, Alex. We talked about this. Also, they never, I thought they were going to get to interact with the cannibals that used to be wildlings. Like, that was kind of a cool idea, and I actually didn't hate it. I hated that they were, brown people who were savages. I hated that aspect, but I was intrigued by the idea that there are still wildlings here, and what have they become in the 500 years. But no, they just went there, they murdered everyone they saw, found a tree, and left.
Are we the baddies?
We're told belatedly that when they saw that the heart wasn't in the tree, that Oro just closed back in on himself. And it's that would have been great to see in real time in the previous chapter. But Isla is so self-centered that all we heard about was her and her feelings on it. And now we're told afterward that, oh, by the way, Oro's upset by it too. Again, she's like, this isn't over, and she's marching into his room. And it's this would be so much more meaningful if you didn't wait 3 days before you did it. Have her, go to sleep for a few hours of restless slumber and then wake up the very next day energized and ready to keep fighting, not 3 days later. This is a lie. Even in her search for the Bondbreaker, she had been following Celeste's plan. For the first time, Isla made her own. We had this exact plot point earlier in the book where she realized that she was following everybody else's plans, and then she made her own. So you can't just use the same supposed character arc twice and call it good. I'm starting to think that Alex forgot things from the beginning of the book, and there was never a developmental edit to this book, and nobody went back and was like, oh yeah, we've already done this, or she's already said that. I'm not even convinced that Alex read back through this book. She wrote the end, passed it off to an editor to get all the spelling mistakes out, and it went to print. I think that's what happened, legitimately. I hate saying that a book feels like a first draft because a lot of times people just say that when they don't actually understand what a first draft looks like. But I'll be real. If not a first draft, a second. This feels like such an early draft that just had all the spelling mistakes removed from it. I don't know how the fans of this book managed to follow it. I feel like maybe they are putting more into this book than it is giving them. Maybe they are building the scenes in their own heads to be more than this book is presenting them with. It has to be. They're looking at the tropes and they're going, ooh, I like this trope, and then they're building something more beautiful in their own minds. They're writing fan fiction in their heads as they're reading it, because this book is giving us nothing. Oh, this is the most clumsy coming together of plot points, but you know what? This is the book we're reading. Isla's like, let's go back to the fundamentals. How did you hear about the heart? And he's like, I read about it in a book that I found in a hidden library. And Isla's like, snap, the hidden library, the thing that Celeste wanted to find. It's real, and probably the Bondbreaker's in there.
It's the peasant who I saw leaving the city who disappeared into the crowd with Cusco in the back of his cart. He must have taken him back to his village, so if we find the village, we find him, and if we find him, we find Cusco. Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
And there's just a magic door, no explanation for this magic. He just opens a door and then opens it again, and this time it opens to a magical library. Once again, the softest of magic systems. This magic system took one look at the idea that there might be rules and just ran in the other direction. But this is giving soft magic systems a bad name. Soft magic systems, and I've written several, can be beautiful and mysterious and ethereal and makes magic kind of have its own personality. But in this, it's a soft magic system because the author never bothered to come up with rules. It feels like it should be a hard magic system because there's a lot of stuff that magic can do, and every now and then the author will sort of pretend that there are rules, but there are really no rules, and magic in this world can do anything it needs to at any given time. I'm not at all surprised that this is the next thing we are finding out, because it is the most cliche thing that could happen next. Think of the most cliche information that Isla could get, and you're probably right. Oro is like, before we read about the heart, I have to tell you that Grimm's ancestor, and I think Oro's ancestor, created this island, but also your ancestor, Lark Crown, created the island as well. She, I'm assuming it's a she, pulled the earth up from the seabed to make the island. This is the Lightlark. It was named after her. So,
You serious?
I mean, I'm not even slightly surprised. Oh, there goes the memory card. I knew I would talk for too long. Oh, we're so close to the end of the chapter. Can I read at top speed? I don't know. Yeah, they figure out that it must have been Sunling, Wildling, and Nightshade that cast the curses, not Cleo, because apparently it needs all of them to break it, which again, why didn't Oro bring this up earlier if he knew this? Isla's still certain that it's Cleo somehow. But then they return to the books, and 2 hours later they still haven't found what they're looking for, so I guess Isla processed that information very quickly. And then she goes to visit Celeste. She holds her hand. Again, they're not gay. I don't know what you're talking about. And she finds the ring that she gave Azul in Celeste's hand. So that's the cliffhanger we leave. Wow, everything about this was so rushed. There's so much to think about and explore with the idea of these three rulers coming together and maybe having spun the curses themselves, and why, and what was the first offense that was committed, and clearly these three need to do something to solve it. But Isla doesn't care about that. She just moved on from that and was just mad that Grimm hadn't told her the whole truth, and then they went and looked at some books. So anyway, memory card about to run out. Thanks so much. I'll see you for the next chapter. We are back. It is a dreary day, but don't worry because Giorgio is here. She will make all of us feel better. We are here with chapter 49, Diamond. We are headed for the end, and I legitimately have no idea how any of the things in this book could possibly resolve. So at first I was confused because she's like, Azul is the real villain. And I forgot that in the previous chapter she had found the ring she had given to Azul in Celeste's hand. And immediately this girl jumps to conclusions. She doesn't just jump, she leaps. She leaps over all other logical thoughts and points to conclusions. And so since she found this ring in Celeste's hand, she decides that the only reason that Celeste would have this is because Azul is actually the evil mastermind behind everything.
Excuse me, what?
Isla has another character moment that comes out of nowhere where she suddenly realizes that she's selfish, because she's like, oh, I didn't tell Celeste that I overheard Oro and Azul having a conversation that I didn't even understand. I don't know what you would have told Celeste. You would, oh, by the way, I overheard a conversation. 3 sentences of a conversation, and so therefore look out for Azul. What about that conversation would have made you think that he was going to be attacking Celeste? We're trying to have a character moment over here, and we don't care if it makes sense. She has to realize that she has been selfish,
but not in the way that she has actually been selfish throughout the story, with her plans to screw over the other rulers and leave them and their people, as well as her own people. Her entire plan was just to get herself and her best friend out of this so that they can go off and live whatever fun lives they want to, with no care for her rulership and no care for any of the other leaders or their lands. That's the way she's been selfish, but instead, we've got this.
But that's what we have for character growth in this book. Don't feel bad, Isla. This isn't even your fault. Every time she thought she knew something for certain, the truth shifted and scattered. Yeah, that's not your fault, Isla. That's because nothing in this book makes any goddamn sense. Even the actual Sherlock Holmes could be in this book and he would be like, yeah, I got nothing. So she goes to her palace, her empty palace, and she clicks the Grimm summoning necklace. And she's like, his powers don't work here, so he's gonna have to like walk. But like, if his powers don't work here, then how come the necklace works here? Grimm, of course, comes like charging in, bursting through the door, absolutely frantic because she pushed the emergency necklace, the life alert. She pushed her life alert necklace.
But with Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
His giant hands cupped both sides of her face.
Get over yourself, big man.
I don't know why she thinks this matters, because like none of the pieces, none of the clues that she has gotten make any sense, but she's like, why didn't you tell me that a wildling also created the island with the sunling and the nightshade? So like, she came to the conclusion that Azul was a bad guy. But rather than deal with that, she jumps back to this other thing where for some reason it matters that a wildling was also involved in the creation of Lightlark. Nothing flows together. Nothing makes any sense. He has the stupidest excuse. Some things are better uncovered ourselves. There are many things others told me that I would have preferred to have learned on my own, in time, when I could understand it better.
Utter crap.
And that's just the author being like, I need a reason that he didn't tell her things. He just thinks it would be better if she solved it by herself, because it's better if nobody tells her anything. I didn't want to force everything onto you at once. You mean the author didn't want to give away clues? I say clues in the loosest possible sense. She didn't want to give away any of those too early in this meandering disaster of a book. Grimm decides it's time for an overwrought love confession. She's like, is there anything else you haven't told me? And he says, I haven't told you that you've ruined me. Ruined? Ruined. Tortured. You haven't stopped tormenting me since the first moment I saw you. Once again, this author has pieces, understands what makes up a good scene, but has done none of the work. These two have no chemistry. Even though Isla is like horny for this guy when she sees him, they have no actual chemistry. He's trying to do a you have bewitched me body and soul.
You have bewitched me, body and soul, and I love you.
And then they kiss, and she's really into it, and yeah, we all know, they have no chemistry. They take off each other's crowns, which I guess is hot? I don't know. I think this author has a thing for crowns. Giorgio is exactly how I feel about this smoochy scene. Also, she reminds us of the dreams that he sent her, so that's super invasive, and Grimm is distressing and creepy at pretty much every turn, except for the fact that he bought her chocolate that one time, but for some reason she's very into him. Her legs locked around his center. Did she like jump up and like wrap her legs around his midsection? Because it doesn't mention that. It just says her legs locked around his center. And also she can feel his boner. So I'm like, okay, we're here with this ostensibly young adult book, which won't even show us blood most of the time. A guy got stabbed in the neck and there was no blood. She had a heart on her plate and it was not described. But we do want to know that she can feel his boner as she like wraps her legs around him somehow. Now they're just dry humping. This is like teenagers. They're just dry humping like a couple of teenagers in the back of the high school. Even though this is supposed to be really sexy, even this feels very juvenile. I just wonder if maybe Alex is afraid. Like, she's an adult. She's a whole adult. I keep calling her a young writer, but that's just because I have 10 years on her. She's not actually all that young. She's been an adult for a while. Finally, he slips his hand into her modern underpants. I don't know how. Like, it seemed like they were definitely still standing up. So if she's like wrapped around him like a spider monkey, how is he giving her this hand job? Like, I'm just trying to picture the logistics here. Where is his hand reaching her, maybe around and down? Like, how is he getting to her? This is like one of the unsexiest. Do I call this an awkward sex scene? This is one of the unsexiest, most bland, sanitized sex scenes I have ever read. And then she thinks that getting an orgasm from him, or maybe just getting a handy from him, feels really familiar. As familiar as humming or falling asleep or rain or breathing. This sex scene is so poorly described that I don't actually even know if she got to have an orgasm. It just like stops. Like everything else, it just stops. We're just like, all right, we're bored of that now. I'm gonna give it awkward sex scene because it was written by somebody who has maybe read 2 or 3 other sex scenes, memorized some of the words that were used, and wrote them on the page. But that's it for that scintillating chapter. Once again, Isla has completely forgotten all of her tasks because sexy time with Grimm, I guess. She's very distractible, this girl. It's a real pity that she is the main character and needs to save the day because, woof, these people are in trouble. Anyway, I'll see you for the next chapter. Alright, we are back. I just took a bite of something and then I started recording. The next chapter is chapter 50 and it is called Sleepless. In Seattle? What was the last chapter called? Diamond. I guess because she pressed her little life alert necklace and that's a diamond. I would have called that one Handy. Alright, let's get on with it, shall we? She's spending her days and nights in the library. Which library? And also, we are just having more days go by. There are so many things she could be, like, investigating. Like, maybe use your ninja powers to infiltrate Azul's castle and find out what he's up to, rather than just assuming that he's the villain, and then just carrying on. Go threaten him. Go threaten... Polo Layla. Go threaten him until he tells you how to cure your friend. Oh my gosh, after he gave her the hand job, he didn't even try to do anything for himself. They just cuddled. Did she write this when she was like 15 and never edit it? Oh, I guess she sicked Grimm on Azul. She told Grimm to find Azul wherever he was hiding. I didn't think Azul was hiding. It's probably in his castle. So she and Oro are just studying in his secret library, and he can, like, tell. He can smell the sex on her or something. Of course, he's jealous. Quite frankly, sir, you can do better. This reminds me a lot of Cyborg Tinkerer down in the library researching scenes. I guess this is a trope as well of sort of these novice books, is the characters have to go search a library. And they feel very much the same, like the tone, the pacing, the everything. And I'm definitely not saying you shouldn't have a characters research something in a library, scene or scenes in your book. I would just encourage all of us to find ways to make that more dynamic and at least have maybe some character moments in that instead of just they researched and they were tired because they weren't finding anything and just finding different ways of saying that over and over again.
It also definitely feels like a younger person's understanding of how researching in a library would go. Definitely young people nowadays don't need to research in libraries because the internet is there, and so a lot of them write these books where the books in the library are just randomly in there, and the characters just have to like pull out books at random and page through them hoping to see what they're looking for, instead of, you know, the books being in any type of order, by subject, searching certain books. They don't even give us the titles. They just tell us that the characters searched around in books for a long time.
She has Oro just repeat everything they know about the heart, which is good, because now we, the reader, can see all of the weird pieces in the same place. So we know the heart is on Moon Isle, we know it contains immeasurable power from Wildling, Sunling, and Nightshade, we know it was used to spin the curses. Do we? The book is telling me these things, but I honestly have no idea if the characters ever actually found these things out for sure. We know it blooms regularly when needed in different places where darkness meets light. So at least we've got all of the things together in a chunk. And then, of course, Isla has the brain blast. Where does darkness meet light? Every day at dawn and dusk.
I've got it! His real name is Artie Morty.
I was foolishly thinking it was going to be a little bit more complicated than that, but I guess the author did get one over on me because I kind of discarded that idea out of hand. Forgive me for thinking it was going to be a little bit more complex than that. And Oro realizes that the reason he can never find the heart is because he can't be out at dawn or dusk. And it's like, oh my god. So you're telling me all he needed was somebody who could be out in the sunlight? Anyone could have helped him? No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not filled with a boundless rage at all. No, don't know what you're talking about. We're reminded of that bird again. We've already talked about the bird. You know what problems I have with the bird and how I would improve the bird situation. Then she realizes, the bird! I think I know where the heart is because the bird. So yeah, the bird is gonna be the MacGuffin, or like lead them to the MacGuffin. I'm just gonna say that if you are a writer like me who looks at what other authors do to see where they succeed and what we can mimic from that, don't use this book. If you want to read this book purely for entertainment purposes, cool. But if you're trying to look at it to find out how to do anything, really, no. All right, everyone, I'm done for now, but very soon, maybe even next time you see me, I don't know, I will see you all in my cosplay for the finale. Who do you think I'm gonna dress up as? Place your bets. I'll see you then. But we do talk about patrons. Patrons like Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Lauren, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, Jessica, KJ, LaFone, Amanda, Unicorn Jenny, Celia, Neon, Taya, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Marween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. Wow, I'm feeling super blessed right now, you guys, to have so many amazing patrons. Jealous? You should be. So you all know that when I get a new patron, I offer them a special shout out so they can shout out any of their blogs, vlogs, channels, books, anything that they're interested in. Now, Bear said that they didn't have anything that they wanted to shout out for themselves, but they did have a artist that they wanted to shout out. Doggy Yasha is the artist's name on Instagram. There will be a link below. Go check it out. There's some really cute art there, so don't miss out.